Okay, hopefully this works. So one of the needs that you might run into is how to make the watery blue to do like shading. So a lot of kids struggle with this, and so I want to show it. I usually mix with my number 6 brush. I've got another number 6, and I want to show some thing to think about with your number 1 brush for coloring in things. And then I'll talk about a brief little way to do the sky with wet on wet. So if I'm mixing a really watery blue to do my little shadows, when you're talking about snow, this is what I do. So remember, we've got 2 cups of water. One is for cleaning your brush, one is for mixing, and right now they're both clean. So I'm going to swipe off my brush, so it's going to give me a few drops of water. And you might not be able to see that because I don't have great light, but it's very little water. And then I'm going to swirl my brush in the blue and then touch it. And look at that. I've got this super watered down blue. Now, something to keep in mind is you could have a paper towel next to you so you can wipe off. You guys are on top of newspaper and you can wipe your brush off on newspaper to dry it out. But one thing I do is I always wipe off or scrape off the edge so I don't have all that water flooding my work. And then I can do this very pale blue. Look at that. It's so pale that you can't even see it. Let's add a little more. Kind of testing this out. Wipe off the edge of my brush. Let's try it again. Ooh, that's perfect. And I just come around the edge like a shadow. And go under the nose, under the eyes. And then I'm going to go under the scarf. I'm going to go ahead and dip back in. Again, I'm going to scrape off my brush. Don't forget to do that. It'll be too wet. I'm going to come around this edge and I just lay my brush down. And it's super light. If you want it to be darker, you can, and it'll lighten up more as the paint dries. So I'm going to come around here, and I'm actually going to make it very thin right here. Okay, I'm also going to do it for the snow right here. I'm just going to go, zoop. Yep, sound effects work. Zoop. Okay, I have a little line underneath my Christmas tree, so I'm going to go under that. It's for my little illusion of snow. Let's go under the buttons. Try not to rest your hand in it. That happens to me a lot. Rest my hand in it, and then I get little dots everywhere. Okay, and that's as much as I need to do. I did under the nose, under the buttons, under the scarf, around the edge, a little under this part of the scarf, under the hat. I could come along the top of this scarf if I wanted to with a real thin line. Okay, now I'm going to wash out my brush. So now this is my dirty one. Okay, notice I'm scraping off water. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, something else I want to talk about. When you're painting and you need to be in painting with colors but really fine, I love my 1-inch brush, or my number 1 brush, 1-inch, number 1 brush. I am going to get it wet because it's not wet yet. And I'll make sure to go in my clean water. And it's wet, it's got a little drop on it, tap it off. Now, I could mix up colors, but they'll be very watery. If you want a nice bright color, I just take the tip of my brush and swirl it around in the color I want while it's wet. And then I get a brighter color. And I have more precision with my little number 1 brush. And I let that dry, and if I want to come back and give it another dose of that color after this dries, it'll give me some highs and lows. So it gives me that little sense of shading and brightness. But notice I did not mix up paints to do that because it'll just be really watered down and it's not necessary. Now, that being said, if I want to do that tree, I'm going to use my number 6 to mix colors because it works the best. If you're wanting to make color for trees, the green that comes in your set, and I'm gonna notice I'm doing the water once, twice, scrape off water. I'm gonna swirl it in the green, but the green that comes with the set is a real cheesy green. It's definitely not realistic green. And this set, it doesn't have a black even. It has a weird dark green. for the black. I don't know what's up with this praying set, but you know, COVID did a lot of weird things to our paints. So I'm gonna mix either red, orange, or some brown into this to get a more realistic green. Now my red's not even a true red in here. I'm gonna go ahead and try a little of this red. Notice I'm just dabbing this brush in, and then I'm gonna see if it gives me a more realistic green. It looks really grayed out. So maybe I shouldn't have used that red. This is a terrible set to mix. I'm gonna clean off my brush. I'm gonna add a little more green back to this. Again, you get to experiment because depending on your set, you want a nice realistic green. This is still not really realistic. I'm gonna dab into my brown. I like that better. I should have maybe used brown to begin with. Maybe this is a more of an evergreen color. Looks like it's going to towards the blue. Let's see what we got. Yeah, and it's super watered down. I want more pigment, but I can go over this tree once. I could have just done a snowy tree. I did not, because I wanted to show you about making green. And of course, when I'm doing a demo, it never comes out like you want. So you have to play around, and that's why I'm in my sketchbook. I'm not on my realistic one, or my final project. And this is wet. If you wait till it dries, you'll get better, but I like that green better. And then of course, I'm gonna wait till it dries and I could come back over it and give it some more green. So I used the green, and I think the brown worked the best, better than this red, because this red is really an orangey red, kind of weird. But I want you to experiment. Okay, the last thing I want to show you is a little wet on wet. And because this tree's wet, you've got to make sure your stuff dries. So I'm going to go over on this side. I've got plain water. My brush is clean. And I'm going to lay down some water over here. And in case you didn't practice when we did wet on wet, normally your colors will just go where you are. Now I'm just going to swirl in my blue and start tapping. Yay! I love this part. Wet on wet's nice. And then I can actually use a wet brush, and I can bring my blue where I want it to. And you can be creative with this. You do not have to fill it totally in, but I could come all the way over to this edge. Bring it down, bring it where I want, maybe all the way around, maybe in here. So I have control over that. And then do a little dry brushing at the edges. Again, I can take some plain water and I can continue this out. And I can do some more dots of blue in here. And you can play around with your wet on wet and your sky. Don't forget that you can come back in there with a paper towel and you can do some lifting as well. You can also do lifting with a dry brush. And of course, I don't have a paper towel here or a newspaper. I guess I do have this number 6 brush that I wasn't using. Let's get that. You could do some lifting with a dry brush as well. Notice, and I would have my paper towel and I would use that. And of course, I'm doing a demo and you can't see it. Of course, we always love that. Especially as a teacher in a class. Lift it with a dry brush. Sure, Miss Leslie. Well, I just really wanted to show you how you could do your wet on wet, how you could do this light wash of blue, how you could make a green. So that is that for now.